Hi, everybody. John Kiriakou here. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Briefing Room. First, I want to say hello from Cairo, Egypt. I am in the beautiful, historic Zamalek neighborhood on an island in the center of the Nile River. The hotel that I'm staying in is the Marriott, which happens to have been the royal palace of King Farouk. This hotel is so wonderful and so historic. It even has its own museum in it where you can go see things left behind when King Farouk ran off to to Italy in the middle of the night. I'll get back to Egypt in a middle. I'll get back to Egypt in a minute. I wanted to start off really by saying that something happened last night that initially upset me very much. Um, I've had a day to calm down, but right wing and pro Zionist extremists on Twitter somehow discovered that I had dinner a year and a half ago with an American citizen of Bangladeshi origin who happens to be a U.S. representative of the Turkish AKP party, which is the party of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Okay, first, I've talked about that meeting publicly many times, most recently in a speech I gave in Cyprus in May. Number two, who cares? I can have dinner with anybody I want, and I don't have to ask the Zionist lobby or AIPAC if it's okay with them. Number three, I am a Greek citizen. Now, the AIPAC people are accusing me of somehow secretly working for the Turkish government. I have said repeatedly that God forbid someday Greece and Turkey were to ever go to war, which is highly unlikely. Even at my age, I would volunteer to serve in the Greek armed forces. Again, I can have dinner with anybody I want, and I'm not asking Benjamin Netanyahu's permission to do it. One final point. I remember that dinner very well. It was short. It was in Arlington, Virginia, and the moment we sat down at the table, and this Bangladeshi man, whose name I don't even recall, said, I wanted to talk to you about some ideas on foreign policy and how the United States and Turkey can have a close relationship. I said, wait a minute. The very first thing Turkey has to do is you have to get out of Cyprus immediately, and you have to stop your aggression and your threats against Greece and violation of Greek airspace. And I said 3 times in this very short dinner, you have to get out of Cyprus. You have to get out of Cyprus. And that's how we left it. I'm not ashamed of that meeting. I'm actually rather proud of that meeting. And I will not take my marching orders from the Israeli government or from their minions and their toadies in the United States. So tough luck, guys. Good try, but tough luck. I don't answer to you. One other point I want to make. I think that the timing of these attacks was not an accident. Now, they're saying that they just found these documents from the Justice Department that said John Kiriakou had dinner 18 months ago with the Turks. But we criticized Israeli actions in the last episode of this show vis-a-vis warning Donald Trump that he was in mortal danger of some terrorist attack from Iran. And we quoted a Turkish newspaper saying this was all made up. Well, the day after we ran that block in our show, the CIA came out and said, we never believed the information from the beginning. We think the Israelis made it up. Of course the Israelis made it up. They just don't want people like me to tell you that they've made it up. This is an act of desperation. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy sitting in front of a camera with a YouTube podcast. But they attack me. They attack Tucker Carlson. They attack Candace Owens. They attack Marjorie Taylor Greene. They attack everybody who doesn't fall into line with Israeli policy. I'll never fall into line with Israeli policy because I support the United States. The foreign policy of the United States is what is important to me. The success of the United States is what is important to me. I don't care what happens to Israel. I'm not going to let any of that get in the way of the show. I'll keep doing what I always do, which is to share the news. And as always, there's a lot of news. Let's talk about the Navy. Our Navy is reaching a breaking point, and nowhere has it become any more clear, any more visible than on our most important and most advanced aircraft carrier. That is the USS Abraham Lincoln. Last week, reports emerged describing conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier, that sound extraordinary. Sailors allegedly attempting to jump overboard because their mental health is cracking. Shortages of fresh food, broken toilets, and not just toilets, but the whole plumbing system. And at sometimes 45-minute or 1 hour long waits just to use the bathroom. That sounds like prison. All of that is what I experienced in prison. And I'll get to that in a minute. Many people suspect all of this is happening because soldiers are stuffing socks into toilets. They're desperate to be sent home. They've had enough. This is the second longest deployment since the Vietnam War. When reports came out of soldiers and sailors, I should say sailors and Marines trying to throw themselves overboard, the administration came out immediately and said, these reports are false, or these reports are exaggerated. When 3 senior officials immediately deny reporting, run in front of a camera to deny reporting, that's often a sign that the reporting is true. You had Pete Hegseth, for example, say that it was false. Then Donald Trump said it was false. Then the Secretary of the Navy, Hung Kao, put out a statement saying it was false, all while immediately moving to replace the USS Abraham Lincoln with another aircraft carrier, the USS George Washington, and trying to tell people that this is all just part of a normal rotation. Well, if it was part of a normal rotation, why did we cancel joint maneuvers with South Korea to pull the George Washington out and send it to replace the Abraham Lincoln?
Let me explain something to them. You've lost the American public. You've lost the American military. You've got to stop. The United States is not going to fight your wars for you indefinitely. Donald Trump isn't going to be president forever. And you're not going to be able to push around every American, and you cannot intimidate the rest of us into silence. It's not going to work. We also have a video that the USS Abraham Lincoln put out yesterday, which, I think they were trying very hard to be optimistic. But again, this just makes me more frightened for the people who are on board. This video looks like a hostage video. JB, can we cut to the video? Okay, well, nothing can break her. That's good. Was that in response to the food? Was that in response to the toilets? Was that does she not use the toilet? But to me, it just seemed like a hostage video. It was a propaganda video. There's another one too. I think that, we can get to the other one in a few minutes, but I think that may tell you more about morale, especially morale aboard this aircraft carrier, than any Pentagon press release ever could. And listen to what the Navy itself is saying. Their press release is pushing back. Don't even deny. Well, he feels it, but he's in denial because people are jumping overboard. When your mental health is so bad that you jump off the side of an aircraft carrier because drowning in the Mediterranean Sea is better for you than continuing to live your life on the USS Abraham Lincoln, you have a serious problem. But listen, don't take Pete Hegseth's word for it. Listen to the wife of one of those sailors. Here's what she told CNN.
I don't know if any of you have ever been on an aircraft carrier, but life is rough. They hold between 5,000 and 5,500 sailors. This is the second longest deployment since the end of the Vietnam War, 1975. People are suffering. And when you don't have enough food, literally, you don't have enough food and can't go into port, excuse me, and can't go into port to resupply, then you're going to have problems. Now, note that the wife of the sailor said that this was the worst deployment her husband has ever been on and that it's too long. Here's what Donald Trump had to say about that, and much of the Democratic Party, frankly, is how they wrap themselves in the flag. They jump up and down on Capitol Hill to support our troops, support our troops. They voted to place a $1.5 trillion budget at the expense of our own national infrastructure, as well as, education and medical care. And then when our sailors are literally going hungry and losing their minds to the point that they're jumping off the side of the ship, they say, tough luck for you. Deployment's not long enough, sissy. I don't think that's supporting the troops. Well, listen to this reaction from the wife of a sailor who's actually living through this, right? Everybody's lying. Everybody's lying, except the top people at the White House and the Pentagon. And again, the White House knows it has a problem bad enough that it needs to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln. But it gets worse. Conditions on the USS George Washington don't look any better. I took one bite and then I just picked up the tray and I went to the little window where you put your tray in for them to clear it and wash it. And the warden saw me throwing away my entire dinner. And he said, "Hey, Kiriakou, I could write you up for wasting all that food." And I turned to him and I said, "I have eaten that tastes better than this dinner." And I just kind of dared him. Good, lock me up. And I walked away. A couple of months later, the warden sent out an all-hands email. There's an intranet in the Bureau of Prisons. So every inmate except the child molesters get access to the computer, internally only. And he sent us this email saying, "We're sorry. A couple of months ago on taco night, we accidentally fed you dog food. It wasn't our fault. The meat processor had mismarked the boxes as taco meat, and then the taco meat was mismarked as dog food. So the dogs ate the taco meat and you guys ate the dog food. Sorry." They were fined $15,000, all of which, of course, went to the Bureau of Prisons, not to us. You know what the shame of it was? It wasn't even that we ate dog food. It's that we didn't even know it was dog food. Well, that's what our sailors and Marines are eating right now. The same food that we were eating in prison. Small food portions are going to be a problem. You might recall the term MRE, meals ready to eat. Everybody during the Vietnam War, during the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, everybody had meals ready to eat. And it might sound odd to say it, but they were absolutely delicious. The thing is they are crazy caloric. So if you make, meatballs and scrambled eggs, which was actually one of the choices, it might have 1,200 calories. But the military version in the Meals Ready to Eat package is going to have 4,000 calories. Why? Because you need nutrition and calories to fight a war. You can't fight a war with one slice of salami and a hard-boiled egg. You can't. And so our fighting men and women are being wronged. And it's doubly insulting that the Ministry of Defense, the Department of War, is denying that any of this is a problem at all. I want to show you a couple of other pictures from the USS.
I can't imagine any of the 5,500 sailors that are on want to sit on that as well. The video the U.S. Navy put out yesterday showing conditions aboard the USS George Washington honestly made things Even worse, check out this video. Literally everything in that video was from the commissary or the auxiliary cafes, meaning you have to pay for all that out of your pocket while you're on the ship. They didn't show you the slop that's being fed to the sailors and Marines. They showed you what's available for purchase out of your own pocket. Want a pack of ramen? Go to the machine. You want a Starbucks? And there was a Starbucks cup there. Go to the machine. You want some beef jerky? Go to the machine. If you want a moldy piece of salami, sure, stand in line with the other 5,000 people and wait and get your moldy piece of salami. So, listen, if anybody who saw that video has ever served in the Navy, they would know that it was all a big lie. Just a lie. Again, with the amount of effort you can tell was put into the hostage video, that's what I'm going to call the...
I really would not feel good if I was a sailor watching it myself, being deployed for months on end. We're coming up on like 330 days for the Abraham Lincoln. Now, in all of this discussion, you're hearing people say that the conditions on board aren't that bad. This is war. Sailors have food. They're aboard one of the most heavily defended ships on earth. People who served in Iraq or Afghanistan endured far worse. That's not good enough. Number one, I find it incredibly offensive to suggest from a cable news studio, for example, that soldiers just need to toughen up and enjoy the war front, and that people in the last generation had it worse. But sure, you can find people who have worse war stories. There's always going to be somebody who had it worse. But it's not just the conditions, it's the fact that they're suffering for no reason, which is driving people insane. It's the fact that Israel tricked Donald Trump into this war, and he's too embarrassed to acknowledge it, and they are suffering for his decision that is making people insane. You can ask people to endure extraordinary things when they believe in the mission. I used to believe in the mission when they understand the objective. I thought I understood the objective. War against terror, Osama bin Laden, I got it. When they know that what victory looks like, and when they believe their leaders have a plan to bring them home. But what happens when there is no plan to bring them home? You get messages like what you saw on that plane wing. Peace deal number 64 incoming. Just like in Vietnam, our soldiers would be out on the war front, listening to President Lyndon Johnson claim in speeches that he was pursuing peace while simultaneously getting the orders to drop more napalm on Vietnamese villages. These soldiers know better than anyone. I should say sailors. These sailors know better than anyone that peace is nowhere in sight. There are no peace talks going on. This is a war without any objective, and it will be a long time before we get a way out. And they're seeing their friends die, by the way, or their friends go insane and jump off the side of the ship. And for what? As I mentioned at the start of the show, I am in beautiful, wonderful Cairo, Egypt. This is my fourth trip to Egypt over the years, but it's my first trip here since the year 2000. And the country has changed in momentous ways. First of all, by way of background, Egypt is one of the closest friends that the United States has anywhere in the world. Our governments are joined at the hip on many issues, maybe even most issues. I also want to say that Egyptians, the average Egyptian on the street, genuinely loves the American people. I can't even tell you how many times, I've been here 4 days now, how many times people have just lit up when I said I was from the United States. I happen to be here with my son. It's his first trip to Egypt. But people just light up. Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to Egypt. I've been taking Ubers everywhere. I've taken maybe a dozen so far. And everybody wants to talk about the United States. They have relatives in the United States, how much they love the United States, how much they respect our culture and our movies and our music. And then they say, but what in the world is Trump doing in Palestine? Why has Trump turned his back on the Arabs? I was asked that twice today. Why has Trump turned his back on the Arabs? This war has put Egypt in a very difficult position vis-a-vis Israel. Of course, Egypt was the first Arab country to normalize diplomatic relations with Israel. That came out of what was called the Camp David Peace Accords, the Camp David Peace Treaty, negotiated by President Jimmy Carter and signed by Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. Well, that's all great because it was supposed to eventually lead to a free and independent Palestine, and then the Saudis would recognize Israel and all the other countries would recognize Israel and everybody would live happily ever after. And that never happened. Then, about 8 years ago, the Trump administration negotiated something called the Abraham Peace Accords. I thought from the first time I heard the details of the Abraham Accords that this was a terrible idea. Terrible. What it resulted in was Israel opening diplomatic relations with Bahrain, with the United Arab Emirates, with Sudan, with Morocco, and opening talks with Tunisia. But what did it do for the Palestinians? Nothing. So what the Israelis got was international recognition. What these Arab states got was a new market in which to trade and invest and receive investment. And the Palestinians got nothing. Nothing. And the Egyptians don't understand why we let that happen. Not just let it happen, why we came up with the idea and encouraged it. The Palestinians now are dying by the tens of thousands. We've got at least 70,000 dead, and that number has been accepted by the Israeli government. It's probably more because we don't know how many bodies are underneath the rubble that is now Gaza. That's a whole different conversation we can have. But even food is not being let in. Some food is being let into Gaza, but not enough to nourish the entire population. And the Egyptians want to know why we're allowing that to happen. There's a border crossing called Rafah, right on the border between Gaza and Egypt. And the Egyptians have closed it. They've sealed it. Not because they don't want to help the Palestinians, but because they can't risk the idea of an influx of, as many as 2 million Gaza Palestinians. Egypt is a poor country. They can barely provide for their own people. They can't feed and clothe and provide water and medical care and shelter to any Palestinians, let alone, as many as 2 million that are living in Gaza. It's just not possible. Egypt also has had a difficult relationship with Israel. In the 1967 war, the Six-Day War, the Israelis call it, Israel preemptively struck the Arab countries. The Arabs were planning to attack Israel, and the Israelis got wind of it through intelligence intercepts, and they attacked the Arab countries the day before the Arabs were going to attack Israel. And they destroyed all of the surrounding Arab countries' air forces on the ground. Not a single Arab jet made it into the sky. And not only that, that war moved so lightning quick that the Israelis took the Golan Heights from Syria. They took the West Bank from Jordan and East Jerusalem from Jordan. They took the Gaza Strip and all of the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. After the 1973 war, in which the Israelis actually were taken by surprise and lost some territory, 4 years of stalemate then led to the Camp David Peace Accords. And in Camp David, the Egyptians got the Sinai Peninsula back. Now, there were Jewish settlements in Sinai that the Israelis destroyed. I was a kid at the time, and I remember watching the news and seeing video of Israeli bulldozers bulldozing the houses of Israeli settlers and saying, "You're going to have to come back to Israel. You can't live in Sinai anymore. It's going back to the Egyptians." So the Egyptians had Sinai for several decades, and then Al Qaeda popped up. Now, I've been to Sinai many times. I've climbed to the top of Mount Sinai where Noah purportedly received the Ten Commandments. I visited St. Catherine's Monastery there 3 times, the oldest continuously operating Christian monastery on the planet. But after Israel turned it back over to the Egyptians couldn't quite maintain control of it, and Al Qaeda terrorists began attacking Egyptian military units. Hosni Mubarak was the leader at the time. I met Hosni Mubarak a number of times. I should back up. In 1981, President Sadat was assassinated. I actually went to the scene of his assassination today
Prison,
and
further
took a couple of pictures. Actually,
radicalized